Hello all, welcome to Docker Basics to Brilliance Codes. My name is Kastro Kiran. In the last video, we have understood how to manage the multi-container based application by using the Docker Compose concept. As a part of this particular video, we are going to see one more project that is related to the Docker Compose, where I am going to show you how to deploy the Node.js based application, which is connected with a MySQL database. This is the project that we are going to see as a part of this particular video. Let me give you an overview about what is the project exactly that I am going to talk about. Suppose if you remember, for any application, we have three major components. What are they? The first one is known as front end of the application. The second one is known as back end of the application. And the third one is known as database component of the application. Front end is the application, or front end component of the application is something which the user will experience or the user will able to see. That is actually the front end. Backend is something where we are going to store the application source code. And the database is the component where we are going to get the database from the application or the data from the application. Or you can also tell the user data from the application. So these are the three components that will be there for any application that you are going to deploy in the real-time scenarios. Now, as a part of this project, what exactly I am going to focus is I have created a simple cricket-based application. Okay, this particular application I have created on my own, and it's a very simple application. Nothing much coding is involved, but whatever code that is going to be involved in this project, all the code, I am going to share it in the GitHub repository. You can directly use that particular GitHub repository when you are going to deploy this particular project, especially the project 2. And here in the cricket-based application, which I have created, I am going to use the Node.js. Okay, I'm going to use the Node.js. Along with that, I am also going to use a dependency, which is called as npm dependency. Okay, for Node.js applications, we need to install a dependency called npm dependency. So I'll be installing the npm dependency as well. Along with that, I am also going to use a simple HTML script also. Along with that, I am also going to create a database which is related to MySQL. MySQL database also I'm going to create. Now, what exactly we are going to do is once we deploy the application, okay, once we deploy the application in the Docker container, user will be able to access the application. Once users enter any kind of data in the application, as a DevOps engineer, we need to know whether the data is getting stored in the database that we are going to create or not. That's something that we are going to see. So typically, I'll be showing you how to deploy the front end of the application, how to access the front end of the application, and once users enters the data in the front end of the application, are we able to access the database which is getting generated from the application? Whatever data that is getting generated from the application, that data we should be able to access in the MySQL database. So all these three things I'm going to talk about in this particular video, which I am going to implement by using the concept of Docker Compose. This is all what we are going to do. I have already prepared a detailed document along with the codes which I am going to use. As I said earlier, I'll be giving you all these codes to work for you, and also you can use the same documentation. Along with that, you can also use the codes when you are trying to practice this project. Let me show you the documentation here. So firstly, we need to launch one Amazon Linux instance, and then I am going to install the Docker. Okay, I'm going to install the Docker by using the concept of user data. While launching the instance itself, we can install the Docker by providing this as an user data. Once after we install Docker and once after we successfully launch the instance, we'll be connecting to the instance and then we'll be working with the further process what we are going to see. So let me first launch an EC2 instance and then we will see what we can do by this. So I'm just giving the instance name as Docker by Kastro, and you can give any name to the EC2 instance. There is no restriction for that. And I'm going to select the Amazon Linux instance and the AMI is latest AMI. Make sure the AMI, whatever you are selecting, it has a free tier eligible tag. And then I'm going to select the EC2 instance type as the T2.micro. This is more than fine for this particular project. And if you have the existing key pair, you can click on this drop down and select the existing key pair, whatever is available. If you don't have a key pair, you can create a new key pair. I hope you all know how to create a key pair. So please proceed with that way of creating a key pair. And then in the network settings, I'm not going to change any of the network settings. Let it be the default network settings. In the later case, we will talk about this one. And then the storage capacity, instead of 8 GB, I'm going with some 20 GB of storage capacity, which is within the limits of the free tier capacity. So maximum is 30 GB. So I'm using only 20 GB, which is fine. And it will not generate any kind of bill for you when you are practicing this project. And then the other thing is I want to install the Docker while launching the instance itself. If you want to do that, you need to go to the advanced details. In the advanced details, if you scroll down to the bottom, there will be a section which is known as user data. There will be a section which is known as user data. Now, in this, I'm going to provide the user data. Once I provide the user data, what will happen is a Docker will get installed automatically. So first I am opening the Shabang script, and then I'm switching to the root user. I'm going to install the Docker, and then I'm going to start the Docker. All these three things automatically happens once after you launch the EC2 instance. Let us verify that. So the number of instances I need is only one instance. So let me click on launch instance so that the instance will get launched. Along with that, the Docker will also get installed. Let's verify that. Right. Currently, you can see the instance has got successfully launched. Let me click on the instance ID so that we'll be able to connect to the instance by using the public IP address of the instance. So currently, you can see the instance is in the running state. Let me select the instance, copy the public IP address of the instance, go to a mobile XML terminal, session, SSH. In the place of remote host, place the public IP address of the instance, specify username, and by default, all the Linux-based EC2 instances have the username as EC2-user. Click on Advanced SSH Settings, use private key, and then click on the file icon. Select the key pair file, whatever you have used in order to launch that instance. So click on OK, and now you will be successfully connected to the instance. Once after you connect to the instance, let me clear the screen first. Once after you connect to the instance, I have already installed the Docker by providing the user data. So can we verify whether Docker is available or not? Yes. How will you verify? Docker space --version. When you do this, what should happen? The Docker version should be able to see. Click enter, you can see. How this Docker got installed? While launching the instance itself, I have provided this user data. Since I have provided this user data, I'm able to see the version of the Docker. Okay, I'm able to see the version of the Docker, right? So let me switch to the root user. So sudo su. Okay, sudo su is the command to switch to the root user. Click enter. And if you do, who am I? You can see I'm the root user and my present working directory is /home/ec2 user, right? Now, what I'll be doing is instead of creating all the files in the /home/ec2 user path, I will create one directory. With my application name, I will create one directory. Inside that directory, I am going to create each and every file that is required in order to launch this application. Let me show you that process first. So I have connected to the instance, and then we are going to install the Docker Compose. Why we need to install the Docker Compose? Because we are working with the Docker Compose concept only. So just execute these commands so that you will be able to successfully install the Docker inside your EC2 instance. I'm just going to paste it. All these commands have been discussed in the previous video also. Please have a look into the previous video to understand better of this installation process. So here I am just going to copy these commands and I'm going to execute those commands so that it will get saved. Time will get saved. And let me copy this one also so that it is going to list the files that is available in /user/local/bin path. You can see the Docker Compose file is available. But currently, this file we cannot execute. So in order to make this file in an executable state, we need to give the permissions. So for that, I'm going to work with, firstly, I'm going to work with this one, sudo ls, okay, sudo ln ls, and then I'm going to give the executable permission for the file. So chmod +x represents executable permission. X represents executable permission. For which file? Docker Compose file. Okay, let me click enter. Now, if you do ls, you can see there is nothing that is getting displayed, but the permission has got changed, right? So now let us verify whether the Docker Compose is available or not. How will you verify whether Docker Compose is available or not? The command is docker-compose space version. Now you can see the Docker Compose version is also available. So currently what I have done, I have installed the Docker Compose here. Okay, let me clear the screen. Now what we are going to do is, as I said earlier, I will be creating one directory, and that directory name is cricket-app. Inside that directory, I'll be showing you how to create all the files that are required, and I'll also show you what are the files that I'm going to create. So let me first create the directory with this name, cricket-app. You can create the directory of your own name and your own convention also. There is no need that you should create the directory by using only this name. Let me click enter. Now, if you do ls, you can see the directory that got created. Let me go inside the directory, cd space directory name. Now, inside this directory, I don't have any files. Okay, inside the directory, I don't have any files. Now, here we are going to create 4 different files here. Okay, we are going to create 4 different files. The first file is the Docker file, and the second one is the app.js file, and third one is Docker Compose file, and the fourth one is package.json file. Along with these files, I will also create a directory which is called as a public directory. Now, inside this public directory, I am going to create an index.html file. This is the file structure or the folder structure that I am going to create inside the directory called cricket-app. So firstly, let us see how to create a Docker file. We all know how to create a Docker file. The important thing is how to write the Docker file for this particular application. Right, vi space Docker file, just go to the insert mode, and I will copy all this Docker file content for you, and I'll explain it later once I copy the content into the file. So let me copy this entire thing and then go to the mobile system, paste it. Right, let me explain it here. As I was telling earlier, I am going to work with this application by using Node.js platform. So since I am working with the Node.js platform, I need to download the Node.js image. Okay, I need to download the Node.js image. In order to download the Node.js image, I am using the from keyword from node:14. This is the one of the versions of Node.js official image, which will get pulled from the Docker Hub or Docker registry. Once the image got pulled, then I'm setting the working directory. My working directory is /user/src/application. That is represented by using workdir. And then, as I said earlier, I'm going to create a file called package.json file. Okay, I'm going to create a file called package.json file. And that package.json file, I'm going to copy it from this location to the current working directory. Dot represents current working directory. And then, as I said earlier, I need to install one npm dependency also. Since I'm working with the Node.js application, I need to install the dependency which is called as npm. So in order to install the npm dependency, I'm using run keyword npm install. Right. And then I'm going to copy the application source code. Okay, I'm going to copy the application source code. What is this dot? This dot represents current working directory. And what does this dot represents? It also represents the current working directory. What is my current working directory? I have just created one directory, cricket-app. This is the directory name. So in this directory, it is going to get copied, right? And then I'm going to expose the port. So when you are accessing the application, you are going to access the application in this port only. If you want, you can change the port number. That's completely up to us. So, but in this case, I'm going to access the application by using the port number 3000. Make sure this port number should be opened in the security groups of the instance. I'll show that in some time. Once the port is opened, then the command to run the application. Since it's a Node.js based application, I'm using Node, and the file which contains the code is app.js file. So in this file only, I'm going to create all the things that are related to run the application, right? So I have given the Docker file content. So let me come out of the file, press escape, :wq. That's it. If you do cat space Docker file, you can see the content that is available inside the Docker file. Let me clear the screen first. And then once after we create the Docker file, the next thing that we are going to do is we need to create a file which is known as app.js file. Okay, we need to create a file called app.js file. Remember, when you are creating the app.js file, the name with which you are creating should match this particular name. In the Docker file, we have given this name, right? This name and the name of the file which you are going to create, they should match. If you are changing, make sure if you are changing it here in the Docker file also, you should change. Okay, in the Docker file also, you should change, right? So now let me create the app.js file. App.js file. So vi space app.js. Forget about what is the code that I'm going to keep inside the file because it is not required for the DevOps engineer. I'll just copy this entire code which I have written and I'll be keeping it in the app.js file. So let me copy this entire code up to here. This is the point where the app.js code will get end. You can see it here, right? I'll copy it here and then go to the mobile extension, paste the entire content that is available in the app.js file. This is something that is related to the application. Okay, so here you can see I will give the user will give the cricketer name and then user will give the country name of that cricketer and then it will get stored into the database. What database? SQL database. Okay, it will get stored in the SQL database. That is what I have written here, everything. And the database password, which I am giving it as Kastro. If you want, you can change the password. Okay, that is what I have given, updated password. If you want to update the password, you can update the password or you can change the password. What is the name of the database? The name of the database is cricket_database. Remember, this name and this password are very important when you are connecting to the cricket database. Okay, the password is very, very important. I'll show you how to enter this password and how to connect to the database by using this password, right? So this is the whole content that is available. Let me press escape :WQ, come out of the file. Now, how many files we have? We have two files. One is Docker file and the other one is app.js file. The next thing that we need to do is we need to create a file which is known as a Docker compose file. Okay, why I don't want to manually create the containers. Okay, I don't want to manually create and run the containers. So I want to simplify the task or I want to automate the task. So in order to automate the task, I will use a Docker compose file. So let me create the Docker compose file in the same directory. vi space docker hyphen compose.yml. This is the file extension. YML is the file extension. If you want, you can also give YAML also. YML or YAML, anything will work, right? Click enter, go to the insert mode. Let me copy this entire content and then I'll explain you what this content actually talking about. So let me do that first and then I'll talk about this. Copy the content and then paste in the Docker compose file, right? So here, if you remember in the Docker compose file, how many components will be there? We have discussed that there are 4 major components that need to be involved in the Docker compose file. What is the first component that we need to install or that we need to keep it? The first one is known as version. Okay, the first one is known as version. What is the second one? The second one is known as services. The second one is known as services. And the third one is the volumes. The third one is the volumes. And the fourth one is known as networks. Version, services, volumes, network. So network related components we are not discussing. That will be the part of next videos where I'll be talking about Docker networking. So currently I'm using the version as 3.8 version. If you want, you can run the latest version also. There is no problem with that. And then what are the services I'm creating? 2 services I'm creating. What is the first one? The first one is a database related one. And the second one is application related service. Because I have the front end of the application and database of the application. So 2 services I'm creating. One is database and the other one is application related service. Now when I'm creating the database, what database I am creating? I'm creating MySQL database. Okay, MySQL database. So I'm giving it as MySQL :5.7. If you are watching the video anytime after this version, you can work with that particular versions of MySQL also. You can pull that image as well. And then restart is always environment. What is database environment? Database has some password. Okay, MySQL root password is, this is the password. If I want to connect to the database, this is the password that I have to enter. Kastro is the password. And what is the database name? The database name is cricket underscore database. The cricket underscore database. Now, for this database, I want to attach a volume. Okay, for this database, I want to attach a volume. So that's why I'm giving volumes here. Okay, volumes here. And this is the path where I'm going to work with the volumes. Okay, this is automatically it will get created. The volume will get created, right? This is about the first service, which is called as the database service. And the next service is the application service. In the application, what I want to do, I want to build the application. Where is the application related information is available? It is available in the current working directory. What is my current working directory? I have created a directory, a cricket-app. So I have given dot. Dot represents, it will take the code from the current working directory and then restart always. On which port my application is going to run? Port number 3000. So I'm giving the port mapping here, 3000 colon 3000. And if you want to run this application, or once the application is going to run, where the data should get stored? It should get stored in the database. That is why I'm giving. So whatever name I have given here, that name itself I have given here, right? And for application, do we need any environment? If you want, you can give the environment. If you don't want, just keep it like this. So it will take the default environment. You don't have to change this one. And this password also, you don't have to change. Let it be as it is, no problem. And then separately, I'm not creating any kind of volumes. Okay, separately, I'm not creating any kind of volume. If you want, you can create a separate volume, but it's not recommended or it's not useful for this particular project. I have already created the volume for the database. For application, we don't need any volume. Container is more than fine, right? Let me come out of the file. That is, press escape colon WQ. Now, if you see, we have created 3 files here: Docker file, app.js file, Docker compose.yml file. The next file that we need to create is known as package.json file. Okay, package.json file. So let me create this package.json file also. Again, you don't have to bother much about what is there inside the package.json file. It's something which is related to the application. So just press enter and then go to the insert mode. Copy this entire content from the notes. This is something that is related to the JSON format. Okay, right. So you can see the application name is cricket-app, and I'm giving the version of the application as 1.0.0. If you want, you can change it. From where the application source code is going to come? From the app.js file. Dependencies, I am giving it here: Express, MySQL, and body parser. These are some of the things. Again, you don't have to bother much about this. Press escape colon WQ. Now we have created 4 files: Docker file, app.js file, Docker compose.yml file, and package.json file. What we are left with? We are left with creating a directory. So now let me create a directory called public directory. If you want, you can create any name to the directory. If you want to give, you can give any name to the directory. But here I'm just giving mkdir public. Since my application is going to be public, I have created public directory, right? I have created the directory. So if you do ls, you can see the directory is available. That is public directory. So let me go inside the directory, cd space public. Now inside the public directory, have I created any files? No, you can see nothing is displayed. Let me create the index.html file here. And the content that you need to paste inside the index.html file, that content also I have given. All you need to do is just copy and paste it. If you are good at understanding the HTML format, you can try to understand this one, but I would not discuss about this one because it is not something that is related to the DevOps engineering. Right. I'm just going to paste the content that is related to index.html file. Right. So this is the things that I have given. All the things, whatever I wanted to give, I have given in the index.html file. Once you see the application, we will be able to see what is the country name that user has to enter, what is the cricketer name that user has to enter. You can see label, I have given it as enter cricketer name. So user has to enter the cricketer name, user has to enter the country name, and then he has to click on the submit button. Once he clicks on the submit button, automatically the data will get stored into the MySQL database. I'll show you that. Right. Let me press escape colon WQ. That's it. Right. So now what we need to do is we need to execute the Docker compose file. So how will you run the Docker compose file? By using this particular command, docker-compose up -build -d. What does -d represent? Detached mode. Okay, what I'm building? Docker containers. Containers for what? For the application and the database. Okay, for the application and the database. Right. Let me click enter. Now you can see the containers are getting created. It is going to pull all the necessary images from by connecting to the Docker Hub, and then it is going to create the containers. How many containers it should create? Two containers it should create. What are they? One is related to the application and the other one is related to the database. Now here you can see here in the first case, it has pulled all the relevant things and then it has connected to the Docker Hub and it is working with the Docker file, whatever we have written. So all these things, once it is completed, then we can see whether Docker is working or not, whether the application containers are got created or not. So you can see whatever contents that we have mentioned in the Docker file, all those things has got executed. So 5 lines we have given. So the first line also will be somewhere here. You can see it is going to pull the Node.js image. Okay, this is the first line that I have written, and then it is changing the working directory. It is going to copy the path, and then it is going to install the npm, and it is going to copy. Right. So currently, let us verify whether Docker image got created or not. So Docker space images, you can see the Docker image got created. What is the name of the image? Cricket-app-app. How this image got created? By using the Docker file. And similarly, you can see MySQL image also got created. Okay, MySQL image got created. Now, if you do Docker PS, you should see how many containers? 2 containers. But let's verify whether there are 2 or more than 2. Let me click enter. You can see the Docker containers. Okay, you can see the Docker container. How many Docker containers are there? 2 containers are there. What are they? The first container is related to the application, and the second container is related to the database. Let me zoom out a little bit and clear the screen first. So Docker images, you can see the images, and Docker PS. You can see the 2 containers. I need to zoom out a little bit more. Right. Can you see the 2 containers that are available? One is cricket-app-app-1, and this container is related to the application, and this container is related to the database. Right. So let me clear the screen first. Now, what we need to do is we need to access the application. Now, if you want to access the application, as I said earlier, we need to open port number 3000. Where I have given this port number 3000 in the Docker file and also in the Docker Compose file. So make sure whatever the port number that you have given, the same port number, if you open, then only you will be able to access the application. So let me select the instance, go to security, and in the security, go to security groups. So click on the link that is available here, and then go to inbound rules, edit inbound rules, and then click on add rule. Type is custom TCP. Port number is 3000. So let me give the 3000 as the port number. Source is anywhere IPv4, and click on save rules. Right, I have saved the rules. Now what you have to do, access the application. Go to a new tab, paste the public IP address of the instance, colon, what is the port number our application is running on? 3000 port number. So let me click enter so that we should be able to access the application. How I'll be able to access the application? Because my Docker containers are up and running. My Docker containers are running. So if the containers are running, I should be able to access the application. Let me press enter. Now you will be able to see the application. This is the simple application which I have created. Nothing much complicated I have done because we are not focusing on the developer point of view. It's a simple application. So this is Kastro's cricket application. And here you need to enter the cricketer name, and the country which he belongs to, he or she belongs to. And then you can click on submit. Once you submit, what will happen? The data will get stored in the database. If you want a quick access, you can see the Docker Basics to Brilliance course. YouTube link is also provided. If you click on this link, a YouTube playlist will also be shown automatically where I am uploading all the Docker related files. You can see all the Docker related files are also able to see. Right. And then if you click here, you will be able to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you want, you can send a friend, you can send a connection request. We will stay connected, and whatever doubts that you have, you can post either in the comment section of this video, or you can also connect with me on LinkedIn and you can message me there. Any way is possible, right? So this is the application that I have created. Now, can I enter the data? No. Before entering the data, we need to work with the database component. Okay, before working with the data, before entering the data or submitting the data in the application, you need to work with some database. But what will happen if I enter the data now? Let's say I will enter the data as Sachin. Okay, the cricketer name Sachin and country is India I'm entering. Now, if you click on submit, what will happen is the data will not get submitted to the database. You can see error inserting the data. What is the reason? The reason is quite simple, because I have not done any configuration to the database. Okay, let me reload the page. I have not done any configuration to the database. Right, let us do that configuration, and then we will enter the data, and then we will verify in the database whether data is available, or the user, whatever user is entering the data, that data is coming to the application database or not. Let's verify that. But before that, we need to work with the database part. So first, what we need to do, we need to connect to the MySQL database. So how will you connect to the MySQL database? This is the command, docker exec. If you want to connect to any database, this is the command, docker exec-it represents interactive mode. And then what name you have to give here? Database container name. What is the database container name? cricket-app-database-1. So let me give that name here. Remove that entire thing and then give the database name. Database container name. cricket-app-database-1. You should give exactly as it is. If you change it, it won't work. Okay, let me click enter. Now you can see it is asking the password. What is the password for database I have kept? I have kept the password as Kastro. So just type the password. When you are typing the password, you will not be able to see the password, but you just type it and then press enter. Once you have entered successfully the password, it will show you this option, welcome to MySQL monitor. From here, you are now available in the MySQL database. Okay, you are now available in the MySQL database. If you have entered a wrong password, it will show you to, it will again ask you to enter the correct password. Till the time you are entering the correct password, you will not be there inside the MySQL container. What is the password? Kastro, Kastro. That's the password. Remember, when you are typing the password, you will not be able to see. Don't think that the password is not getting typed. By default in Linux, passwords will not be shown when you are entering, right? So now what we have to do, as I said earlier, we need to do some configuration here. Okay, we need to do some configuration here, right? So first, what I will do is I want to go to the MySQL shell. Currently, I am there in the MySQL shell only. You can see that MySQL shell. Now, what we need to do is we need to verify whether databases are available or not. You need to see whether this thing called cricket-_database that is available or not. Tables are available or not. All these things we have to verify. If they are not there, we need to create it. Let me click enter. You can see the database is available. Database will get created because we have provided that in the Docker Compose file. And tables and cricket_database that we are going to use. So cricket_database is my database name. You can see database change. That means I have shifted to this particular database now. Now, currently, do we have any tables? No. So you can see empty set. Since we don't have any tables in the database, in the application, when I'm entering the data, I was able to see error inserting the data. So before you deploy the or before you give the application, or before you do the application live, you need to make sure all these configurations in the real-time scenarios. If you don't configure the database, obviously, whatever error that we have seen sometime back, that error you will also see. So before you give the application to the live, you have to make sure all the connections are proper, right? So what is the next thing that we need to do? We need to create a table. Currently, do we have any tables? You can see empty set. So we need to create the tables. Remember, whatever data that is coming from the application, it will be entered in the form of tables only, right? So how will you create a table? This is the command which is used to create the tables. So copy this entire one and then paste it here so that the table will get created. Press enter, that's it. You can say query OK, and the table got created, right? Now, let us verify whether table really got created or not. How will you verify? Show tables : this one. So press enter, semicolon, right? And you can see the table is available now. Now, what will happen? Whenever an user enters the data, all the data will get stored into the cricketers table. This is actually the table name is cricketers. Okay, with that, into that cricketers table, the data will get stored, right? So let me come out of the shell. So how will you come out of the shell? Exit. Okay, you can do all small letters or all capital letters. Anything will work. So I have come out of the MySQL shell. Once you come out of the MySQL shell, okay, now you are ready to insert the data in the application browser. Okay, you are ready to insert the data in the application browser. Let me show you that. So go to the application and I will be entering the data as Dhoni and he belongs to India. Let me click submit. Now you see, it is still showing error inserting the database, error inserting the data. The error that we have seen in the application is because of some code error. I have updated the code and I will be giving you that updated code also. So what I have done after updating the code is I have rebuilt the Docker container by using Docker compose up -- build. And then once after I have rebuilt, I have executed this command to connect to the MySQL database. And then once after this is done, then I am going to enter the password in order to connect to the database. What is the password? The password is Kastro. And once after I have entered the password, I'll be connected to the database. Once after you connect to the database, execute this command. Even if you see some errors, you can ignore it. So just execute this command. And then you have to create a table, which I have said earlier. So create table by using this command. If you find any kind of errors, you can ignore them, but you just have to execute this one. And then click on show tables. Once you click on show tables, you will be able to see this kind of table, like cricketers table, which we have already seen, but yes. So since I have executed one more time this one, it is showing that error. So you don't have to bother about this error because since we have already created the cricketers table, it is showing that particular error. Okay. And then you can see when I executed show tables, I'm still able to see the cricketers table. And then I have exited out of the console. Now what we will do is let us enter some data inside the application. I have already entered one data inside the application, that is Dhoni, India. Just to verify whether the application is running or not, I have entered that data when I paused the video. Now let me show you how to enter the data. So just give the data, that is cricketer name, and then I'm giving it as India. So click on submit. Now you can see you have successfully deployed the application. Okay, whatever data that you have entered, that data has got stored into the database. Like this, you can give as much data as you want. All the data will get stored. Let's say I'll give it as Fleming. Whatever names that you want, you can give. Not just the cricketer names, random names also you can give. Let's say I'll give it as Fleming and then New Zealand. Okay, and then click submit. Like this, you can give whatever data that you want. Okay, let's say I'll give one more data, that is Ponting I'll give, and then I'll give it as Australia. Like this, you can submit as much data as possible. I have submitted the data. Now what I want to do, from the application, user has entered the data. Now what we need to do as a DevOps engineer or the database engineer should access the data. If the database engineer wants to access the data, he need to connect to the database first. You can see to check the submitted data in the MySQL database, you need to execute these steps. Again, in real-time scenarios, it is the part of database engineers. But since this project is an end-to-end project, I'm showing you this option as well. How to verify the data that is coming from the application. So first, let me access the container, Docker exec container name. What is my container name? Let me verify that. Just give me a second. I'll just give Docker PS and then I'll execute that. Right. And then paste the command. And here, what is the container name? The database container name, cricket-app-database. So cricket-app-database-1. Click enter. It is asking for password. Just enter password, which is Kastro. Right. I'm currently there inside the database. Okay, I'm currently there inside the database. Right. So now I want to know whatever the data that is coming from the application, that data, is it getting stored in the database or not? That I want to know. So to know that, first I have entered into the MySQL container, and then I have logged into the MySQL container by using a password called Kastro. This is the password which I have set. If you have changed the password, you need to go for that password. And then in which database the data is available? In the database called cricket_db. Okay, in the database called cricket_db. So let me change my database. Use this particular database. I'm telling that. You can see database scenes. Now in this database, I should see the data. So if you want to see the data, now let me select this particular one. And then let me execute this one so that you will be able to see the data, whatever is entered by the user. Can you see the data? Whatever that is coming from the application, is the data available here? Yes. So can I enter one more data? Let's say currently we have Dhoni, Sachin, Fleming, and Ponting. Can I enter one more data? Yes. Let me give my own name itself. I'll just reload the page. You don't have to reload the page. If you just keep it also, that won't be fine. I'll give it as Kastro and I'll give it as India. Okay. And then click on submit. The data has got submitted. Now, can I verify whether Kastro data came into the database or not? Yes. How will you verify? Use space the database name. What is the database name? Cricket_DB. Okay, cricket_DB. Earlier, how many points were there? 4 data were there. Now, what 5th data should come? Let me click enter. Now you can see the database has got changed. Okay, the database has got changed. Now, let me show you the data by executing this one. Select star from cricket. Let me paste it here, click enter. Now, can you see the 5th data is also available? Can you execute like this multiple data? Yes, you can execute as much data as possible. Till the time your application is working, you can enter the data. Like, let me enter one last data and then I will show you. Let's say I'll go with a data called Chris. Okay, I'll go with the data called Chris. And then I'll give the country name as West Indies. West Indies. Randomly, I'm entering some data, so don't bother about the data here. And just enter some random data. You don't have to necessarily enter a cricketer name and country name. Just since application is related to cricket, I just gave the names as cricketer and country name. So let me click on submit here. Right, the data got submitted. Now, let us verify whether the data is replicating in the database or not. How will you verify? When you execute this particular command. Okay, when you execute this particular command, the data should get shown. Right? Can you see? The 6th data is also available. Like this, you can deploy the application into the container by using Docker Compose. Now, can I say that I'm able to access the front end of the application and I'm able to access the database component of the application? This is a full-time or the real-time project, which is having an end-to-end application, especially with respect to the Docker Compose. Okay, especially with respect to the Docker Compose. So if you want, you can work with this particular project, which will be helpful for you. And once your work is done, make sure you need to come out of the SQL shell. How will you come out? Either capital letters exit, or you can also type small letters as well. Both will work if they don't have any problem. You can see, right? Once it is done, make sure you are going to terminate your instance so that you can avoid the billing. But once you terminate the instance, the application will not run. Okay, the application will not run. So this is the project that I want to talk with respect to the Docker Compose. This is all about the project that we wanted to talk. As a part of Docker Compose series, we have seen 2 different projects. One is how to manage the multi-container based application. And the second one is how to have the front end of the application, and whatever the data that is coming from the front end of the application, can we access the data from the database? So this is about the Docker Compose. In the next video, we are going to start a new concept that is available in Docker, which is known as Docker networking. Thank you.